Okay, let's begin coloring the perspective. When coloring the perspective, think of it like you did when you were doing your elevations. We're going to use similar techniques. We're going for the big areas first, and of course, much like the site plans, the biggest area is going to be green. So here I'm going over with my first layer of a willow green or a light green, whatever you've got, your lightest green. And we're going to fill in all these trees and the grass. Just one layer over everything. As is the case with all coloring, ultimately we're going to try and get different levels and gradations on our color so it doesn't look flat. We're going to try and introduce a lot of character to it to give it that watercolory feel, and we're going to retrace all our line work to make the black lines pop over the color. I'm hoping you have a good supply of your light green markers, because you're going to be needing them not only for this, but the final project, which is coming up shortly. We're going to need it for that too. This will be the last assignment before the final project, which I anticipate coming out next week. Well, there's a lot of green on this particular drawing. As I've said many times in the past, I always like to work from my biggest areas to my smallest, so that as I'm proceeding, it gets progressively quicker to get each part done. Coming up on the grass now. Well, we're making some progress here. Notice I left the lake open for now. Just trying to find any spots I may have missed. I'm going to work on the sky now. Now, I know a lot of folks have been struggling with the sky. An exercise that I suggested for a student last week was, in your free time, print out these elevations or these perspectives and try and do just the sky. Just color the sky. It's real important that you make the pattern similar to mine in the beginning if you want to have any success with the marker sky. So I would again recommend, if you're struggling with the sky, and most of you have a little ways to go on your skies. You know, grab your, print out just a couple either elevations or these perspectives and just match what I'm doing on these drawings. Now, it really doesn't take a great deal of time to do the skies, and if you try and copy mine for now and be real specific about copying it, you know, look very carefully how I make my diamonds in the beginning, how big they are, where they start, where they stop. And I only want you to do that because if you can get good doing my sky, then you can move on and try and do your own skies. You know, with mine as a base, but you'll always know you can copy mine and have something that you're happy with the look of. Oh, I'm going to go back and do green where I forgot to do the green in the front. I'm using kind of a yellowish, beigey, brown, light color to do the building at this point. Now, you know, it's important, as I said with the elevations, that you really only want to hint at color on your perspectives and elevations. You know, if you've got a red building, I wouldn't put down a dark red color for your clapboards. I would go with either a warm or a cool. So either a beigey or buff for the base layer, or or you could try some grays, really light grays. Again, as you probably noticed, since we're now coloring on bond most of the time, on plain white paper as opposed to trace, there's always, I'm forever looking for a light colored marker. The light greens, the light beiges, the light blues. You've got to maintain a palette of those, and unfortunately, those are usually the ones we do big areas on our drawing. So you tend to go through a lot of them. I'm now going to put, I've only got a dark red here, but I'm going to put that down just on the chimney. Now I'm going to do the roof. Using kind of some type of a gray, a light gray. I would start with a light gray and put down one coat on the roof. And do the same on the other roof. I'm going to take my light blue and I'm going to put a wash over the lake. And I want to hit each of the windows. Just put a layer of light blue, kind of filling in the whole window. Okay, I'm now going to come back with my original green, and I'm going to put a second layer over the trees. Just the trees. We're going to keep one layer on the grass, and we're going to darken up all the trees. Just fill them right in. You'll notice the scrap of paper I have down on the right-hand side of the drawing. That's just for checking markers as I go along. I find it helpful to put that scrap down and make sure that I didn't grab the wrong blue. the good news about the green is it will get progressively smaller with each pass. But these first two passes of doing everything green and doing the trees over can seem a bit time consuming. Alright, that's it for the second layer on the trees. Okay, now we're going to move on and we're going to do a second layer in the sky. I'm using the same blue that I used before, but I'm just shading down and to the right on each of the diamonds. Please note that while I do this, I'm getting a little looser than I originally did. It's not exactly down and to the right on each diamond. There I put a couple dots off of the diamond. Here there's a couple more. Again, what you want to do is with each subsequent pass on your sky, you're going to want to make it a little looser than the original diamond pattern so that that diamond pattern is going to disappear in the end, or at least mainly disappear. So I'm just getting that shade on the bottom and the right. Putting that down. And you can see it's starting to, the diamonds are getting a little less, you can't see them quite as much, but they're still there. But here I'm putting in a few dots here and there just to break things up a bit. Be loose on this one. All right, next, we're going to move on to the driveway. Using the same gray that I used on my roof, I'm just going to hit the corners. Just a little bit. Little goes a long ways on driveways and walkways. You want to leave that white space in there. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the steps, but again, aiming for the corners. Leave that character in there. I'm going to put my second layer on the roof now. Same color that I used the first time, but I start at the bottom, I put it on thick all along the bottom edge, and then I lighten it up as I go up the roof. You can kind of see that. The garage is a pretty good example of how you want to put your second coat down. Again, pretty bold right at the lower edge of the roof, and then it fades as it goes up. It just gets rid of that flat feeling and gives a little texture and character to the roof. Back to the sky. Now, going back with either a slightly darker blue or even the same blue, and I'm just kind of throwing in some random clouds here. They're not necessarily lined up with the diamonds. They're not as tall as the diamonds, but I'm just kind of throwing them around just to kind of break things up a little bit. You can see the size that I'm doing them. And they're very linear. They go left to right, and they're not particularly tall. I'm going to go back. Now I'm going to add some gradation to the clapboard sides of the building. So I'm using the same color I used for the first coat on the wall, but I'm starting at the bottom, putting it all the way on the bottom, and then feathering it out as I go up the building. You can see that I start, and then I go up, and then I go to my dots. I'll then put touches in some of the corners. Here we go, up we go. You can start to see what I'm doing here as you look at the whole building. So the bottom is going to be more vivid with the color and a little bit darker. And then it's going to get lighter as it goes up. And then we'll touch on some of the corners after this, but there. A little bit in the corner. I'll do a little bit in the peak. I'll do a little bit on the edge corners, but not much. And I feather it out. There you go. So you can kind of see it gives that gradation. All right. Now we're doing the dark blue in the skies. I want you to notice how they're not very tall at all. You know, they're nowhere near as tall as the original diamonds. They're just a kind of a blob with a line, a broken line going out the ends of it. We're not paying attention to where the original diamonds were. We're just putting a few of these in wherever we kind of feel like it and spreading them around the drawing. Notice that sometimes I'll have a big blob going off the edge, and sometimes it'll be a little one. So it doesn't start and stop on the edge. It looks like it would continue if I took that border away. Now all I'm going to do is quickly grab my first blue, and I'm going to go over the top of these. So now I've got that light blue, and I'm trying to just kind of fade the dark blue stripes that I made there, the dark blues. Let's see if I can keep going on that. Here we go. And then again, you'll notice it's making them not look like blobs anymore. Now they just kind of look like their own patterns in the sky, but they're not lined up with that original diamond. And I'm kind of spreading it around. If I'm lucky, I'll blend out. Just using this marker will kind of soften some of that dark blue and give me another tone. And I'm feeling free to put that extra layer of blue wherever I want and again rough it up. Now we're going to go to the green. What we're doing here, now we're taking our original green and we're putting another layer down and to the right, probably for 2/3 of the tree. We want to get it all the way on the bottom of the tree and then up. So with the trees, remember, we filled the trees in with the grass. Then we went and covered the trees one more time. Now we're putting a third one of this original green down and to the right to try and give them a little shade action going on. What I forgot was to put a little of that dark blue in the tops of each of my windows. Just a dab in the upper left-hand corner. A little dot. Gives it a little, and then you kind of feather it down when you go down. Just gives it a little character. Kind of hints at a shadow and makes it a little more vivid. You can see them stand out when I do it. I forgot to do my wall there. Took care of that. Okay, I'm going to put another layer on the roof. If I've got a slightly darker gray, I might use that. But it's less. It's not as much as the first one. The first one was the whole roof. The second one was part of the roof. And this is part of the second one. Again, trying to get that gradation. Just a little in the corners now. All right, now what we're going to do, once we finish up that roof, we're going to put a darker green down on our trees. And here we're not doing the full back 2/3. We're just kind of doing a little bit on the bottom and a little bit on the right edge. So this is kind of our medium green. Goes faster than the earlier steps because we're doing less and less green. You know, it's important because we want to make those trees stand out from the grass. And we're going to do this for all the trees. Now in the example that I'm doing, of course, it's 11 by 17, and due to the situation, we're all going to be doing this 8.5 by 11, so it'll be quicker for you when you do this. You'll fight a little to get some of the detail in. But the same rules apply. By the way, this is the same way we do trees on elevations. See how I've got those 3 layers of green on this tree? So that was our medium green. I'm going to get all of them. I'm going to make that one a little bigger, kind of be consistent with the other ones that I've done. Alright, now I'm just trying to blend in that green. Now I'm probably going to be using the same willow green that I used originally. But I'm using a lighter green to just try and make that hard edge of green go away. See that? It's just trying to soften where I put that medium green down. It was a pretty distinct light green to medium green, and now I'm trying to introduce another tone between the original green and this green. Let's see how it works over here. There we go. You can see it soften. We'll get these little trees. We'll get this one in the back. And here we go up the sides. Yeah, try and get a little more in here. So if you look at the trees now, we've got at least 3 different greens on them. We've got the original coat, well, original 2 coats, and then we've got a medium green, and we've got a darker green towards the right. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm taking my original green and I'm just going in at the edges of the building, and I'll go in a little at the corners in a minute too, but I want to make it darker going up to the edge of the building. It kind of makes that building pop a little. So right down where the building meets the ground, put another layer of your light green in, and now I'm going and doing some of the corners of the grass. And I'm going to put a little around the corners of the driveway. I'm doing that corner again. Doing a little by the corner of the lake. Again, it just gives it character and you don't wind up with that one flat green everywhere. Let's highlight around a couple little dabs around the front walkway. Now I'm getting my dark green, my very dark green, and I'm just doing the right. Maybe putting a couple speckles in there, but for the most part, down and to the right, but keep it to the right. See what I can do. Again, each layer of green is progressively smaller. And you can start to see those trees stand out more with each one of these passes. I can't forget these little guys in the front, which I was neglecting earlier. Again, what we're striving for when we're doing these trees is to go from a dark, vivid green down and to the right to a light, faint green up and to the left. And quite frankly, what I've seen with most students in this class, you guys are pretty good at doing that, so keep doing it. And I'm putting in a few more here and there. I just can't help myself but make that one a little darker. Okay, now I'm taking my medium green, kind of the second level that I used, and I'm going back over the edge of the dark green to make yet another tone in there. I want to break it up a little bit if I can. Just trying to soften that hard edge where it was dark green to light green. Building up the layers. I'm going to put a tiny amount of the medium green in these corners. Just a little bit. A little bit goes a long ways. Just to highlight the edges, the corners, the base of the house. A little bit around there. So remember, we did it with our light green marker. Make sure that when you do this, it's even smaller than what you did with the light green marker. I'm going to put just a little bit of character by doing a second coat on the chimney, just down at the bottom of it and fading it up. We do this tone going from vivid to less vivid. I'm going to start to add some character into that lake using my medium blue. If you don't have a medium blue, just go over it again with your light blue. But just trying to indicate that it's water and give it a little character so it's not just a flat sheet of blue. This marker I've got the pointy end, so I'm using a little bit of that, I think. You don't have to, you can use either end. I'm going to put a little bit of brown in for where the mulch is. It's a reddish brown. Just kind of hitting the corners. Giving a little bit of character. Anytime you introduce a little bit, a warm color, if it's reddish with all this green, it helps you out. Gives you a little character in your drawings, much like we did the red property line on the site plan. Putting a warm mulch in there helps break up all that green. Now I've decided in looking at this that I'm going to make the garage doors the same color as my house. That's a judgment call, but I kind of liked it better like that. Notice that I put down a base coat and I'm going back down to the bottom to make it a little more vivid, just like I did with the rest of the house. I filled in the windows on the garage doors. I'm putting my yellow flash in now on each of the trees. I always like how that brings things out. And a little more right there. Don't forget the little trees in the front. It's amazing how much of a difference just adding that flash does to the drawing. It's time to do the line work. Well, I may or may not do all the line work on this drawing. I'll see at the end. But the rules are the same. If it was lines on the original drawing, you get to trace over all of them. I'm going to start with my freehand lines. Try and get those all done. You don't have to think a lot on this one because you're pretty much just tracing what you already drew. But once I do that, as was the case with the elevations, as was the case with the plan, it's going to make the whole drawing pop. It just tightens everything up. You still get the wonderful loose feel of the color, but now all of a sudden it makes the elements a little more distinct. And yeah, you can see it happening as we go along. I know it seems really tedious doing this, but it's very important. You can see what's happened to that driveway just when I put those lines down. I'm not doing a whole lot of talking for this part because at this point in class you're probably pretty good at tracing over your work. And I just keep putting those lines in. I'll chime in every couple of minutes or so just to let you know that I'm still here. Remember your overlaps. But I mean, if you kind of look at the garage and compare it to the house, you can start to see what a huge difference putting those black lines does. I'm going to put in my roof lines, or at least some of them. Sometimes when you're doing texture, you could actually use your tracing to your advantage. If you felt like texture in an area was too heavy on your drawing, your original drawing, you can lighten it up here by not quite blackening in all of it. But in this case, I'm just going to go over all the lines. I'm going to trace a few trees. You know, in some drawings I would have said that the order should be, trace all your trees, then trace all your building. Uh, I'll let you decide, just as long as all the lines get done. Going to go over and do my grass lines. And you can see how much of a difference it makes when I do that. Okay, so we just keep doing those lines. Once again, we want to make sure that we get all our lines in. Retracing the drawing is hardly the most exciting part of the process. However, the results really are outstanding. All right, we're continuing with the line work. Getting that roof trim in. Now I'm putting that double line in to try and create a little bit of almost a profile line, but it's not really, to make that front roof stand out. I'm going to go ahead and put lines down for the border. Now, I want you to look here. Look at how that looks compared to how that looks and what a difference the line work makes. I'm not going to do the whole, all the line work on the drawing in this exercise, in this example, but again, where I have put the line work down, you can see how much more it stands out by tracing over that drawing. Getting our profile line in, the profile just stops at the ground and goes around the perimeter. And add our shadows in here. And we should see a pretty big difference once we do that. And we do. No shadows on the trees, we're just doing the building. And that is going to wrap it up for this demonstration. Again, when you do yours, please color in all the black lines. Good luck and have fun.